My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of the entire season 1 of Loki. And I reviewed every single episode up until this point, so if you haven't seen those reviews, go back, watch them, then come back here. But it's no secret, I absolutely hate this show. In fact, so many people are claiming it's amazing and one of the MCU's best. And that just baffles me. I know film and TV is all subjective and all that, but I legitimately don't understand it. This show is bad enough for me to say that I'm not going to watch any of the future MCU shows. I think I'm kind of just going to stick to the movies, and even then, they're kind of losing me. This show was absolutely awful, and let's go into a few reasons why. Let's start off with talking about the foundation. Now, what's the importance of the foundation? If you're building a building, the foundation is the most important part. It's what the rest of the building completely relies on. So let's talk about the foundation for this show. The foundation of this show lies within Avengers Endgame when the Avengers tells Hulk to go down the stairs. He goes down, hits the Tesseract out, Loki takes it and disappears. So then the whole show is based on the fact that Loki wasn't supposed to take the Tesseract. That is why they have to destroy the timeline he's about to create. Okay, explain. Now, you've already broken your own rules because in Avengers Endgame, what happens? Well, because Loki takes the Tesseract, Steve and Tony have to go back in time and take the Tesseract again. So, there's a cause and effect thing. And if that was meant to happen between Tony and Steve, then that wasn't supposed to happen with Loki. So right away, the logic in this show is not good. But here's the thing. The very foundation of the show is that logic. This is what the show's dependent on, and it doesn't work there. You know what's another foundation of this show? The character Loki. Guess what? I love Tom Hiddleston as Loki, but I'm so tired of him. He's gotten killed so many times to the point where it's just exhausting. He had a satisfying character arc in Infinity War, so why bring him back? Why bring him back like this? It's just lazy, because now whenever someone's gonna die now, it's just like, well, the variant could appear. So not only does it weaken this story, but now whenever I watch a Marvel movie and I see Iron Man dies, I'm like, well, now we can see a different variant of Tony Stark. So now it weakens the entire universe, because now whenever someone dies, I'm just gonna be like, oh no, they'll come back in some way. Like, that's already a problem of the MCU, but I can see it being amplified over the next few years. And Loki is not meant to be a main character. It's the Minions effect. I explained it already. The Minions are funny characters in Despicable Me 1 and 2. The way they bounce off the girls and Gru, that stuff is great. But they were never meant to carry their own movie. Same with Loki. Loki is meant to bounce off of the Avengers and Thor. He's not meant to be the main character. His personality just doesn't allow it. His trickster type personality, it's entertaining when he's going off of someone else. But here, they're like, well, we can't have him be the trickster all the time because we want him to be the hero. So what do? They give him a completely different character. And how do they do it? He watches the entire MCU and watches himself die, and he's just like, I don't want to die. So just like that, they've now turned him from the villain to the hero, and I hate that. It's not consistent with the rules, because how many times have we seen Loki go from the villain to the hero? The great thing about Infinity War is that he was bound to go bad again, but he died a hero, and that's what's great about that character arc. But for him to just be like, well, I guess I'm a hero now, it's just not Loki. The Loki we're watching isn't consistent with the Loki that has already been established up until this point. So that's just bad writing. It lacks any bit of consistency. But the cast that he bounces off of here is so dull. I don't care about Lady Loki. And that entire romance where he falls in love with a girl version of himself is just so weird. Mobius is one of the worst written Marvel characters. He has no personality. His only character trait that people love him for is for the fact that he's played by Owen Wilson. If it weren't for that, nobody would care. Like, name me one character trait of Mobius. He wants to jet ski. That's all that anyone on the internet seems to want to talk about. That's not enough. It isn't. There's not enough there. I love Owen Wilson. I wish he was given more to work with in this world. And each of the relationships established between Loki and girl version of himself, I'm sorry, that's just so weird. And Loki and Mobius, I just never bought. Why? Because Loki's by himself in season 1. He hates Mobius. Oh. And then episode 2, they're buddy-buddy. And then episode 3, he's just like, oh, I hate you, Lady Loki, and then they become buddy by the end. It's repetitive and it's just not well handled. I never bought a single one of the relationships established. So when the stakes causes one of those characters to be in danger at the end of the show, I just don't care. I already mentioned that I hated the fact that Loki's character growth came from him watching the MCU, but guess what? That's already been done this year with Wanda. What set off Wanda's big character arc in WandaVision? Her watching her past life. I'm sorry, that's lazy. It's just people looking at their past selves like, oh, that's the way I felt, or oh, that's the way I was. I was flawed. I don't want to be flawed anymore. It's lazy, it lacks any subtlety, it's not nuanced, it's bad. It's bad character writing. And the fact that people are praising the character work, what actually happens after that first episode? In what way is Loki's character explored? Like him falling in love with himself isn't that just narcissism? Like what are they going for? What character beats after that first episode did he have to the end of the show? In which way did the end of the show really test how far he came? Because everything that was going to happen happened because of Lady Loki. There was no character growth from that point forward. It's bad character-wise. Also, it's been set up that all the future kings will be played by Jonathan Majors, and we even see with Judge Reinhold that another version of her is played by the same actress, whose name I can't pronounce, my apologies. So, why does every other variant look the exact same, but Loki's doesn't? Oh, well, because of the variants and the timelines. No! That's not consistent. You need to have a set of rules and follow through on them. They're just so loosely created that anything goes. One thing I did like about the first episode is how the TVA was set up. It was just like, oh, it's this weird and wacky place. He goes in an elevator, it drops down, there's all these weird elements, and then he enters a room. And from that point forward, the weirdness of the TVA stops. After then, it could have been a courthouse, it could have been a police station. The setting could have been anywhere. At first, they're like, look how weird the TVA is, but they don't carry through on that. It doesn't feel weird throughout. After a while, it just feels like a dull, generic hideout for the villain. I hated the whole thing with the Infinity Stones. Like, when you use 22, 23 movies to set up a story arc, and you're like, these things are the most powerful things ever. And then you introduce them in this show, and they're just in a drawer, and they're like, oh yeah, they're not powerful here. Then it's just like, okay, well that's stupid. In a future season of Loki, we could get introduced to something that makes the TVA seem so dumb and pointless. It doesn't make the TVA seem bigger and so much more powerful. In fact, it weakens everything that came before it. And that's the problem when you play within a cinematic universe like this one. Just the way that the lore expands throughout, the bigger the story and the world building gets, the less I cared. It doesn't expand itself in any interesting way. It just gets dumber and it loses more logic, it lacks consistency, it's just really poorly handled. And tell me, what is the plot of this show? There is not one cohesive storyline. Episode 1, Loki gets introduced, oh, we have to delete that timeline, we have to delete that variant. Episode 2, Mobius and Loki have to work together to find Lady Loki. Episode 3, Loki and Lady Loki have to work together to get out of whatever that planet was. Episode 4, what even happens in episode 4? Oh yeah, they get caught. Episode 5, they're in this land. And then episode 6, they meet King the Conqueror. So what's the one cohesive storyline? What's the end goal? Because it's not clearly established what the main character wants. The main character, what does he want at the beginning? What does he want at the end? We know that Lady Loki wants to kill King, but that's about it, and that doesn't even get established until episode 3, and we don't even follow her or barely see her at all in episodes 4, and not even that much in episode 5. So just because of all these different characters and all these different storylines it's jumping around, it is a complete mess. There is not one cohesive storyline. Tell me in one sentence what the storyline is. Loki goes on an adventure through different worlds. Just story-wise, there's nothing here. The show just took no creative risks, it played it very safe. Like, even in an episode, we get introduced to a crocodile Loki, and what do they do with that? Absolutely nothing. There might be a few weird things in the background, but plot-wise, character-wise, they don't take any risks. There's not any moments that I'm just like, oh wow. In episode 4, we get that for a quick second where Mobius gets deleted or whatever. But then by the end of the episode, it's just like, oh no, he's gonna be fine. So there's just no stakes created, and the entire thing just feels like a bridge to the Spider-Verse movie, so we can get Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield fighting the Sinister Six with Tom Holland. It just feels like a bridge to that movie and Doctor Strange 2, because by the end of this season, all that happened is that all the timelines broke out, and it's such a big deal. And not once did they actually explain why killing him is the thing that sets that off. Because at the end of episode 2, they're like, oh my goodness, the timeline has broken up. And then it's hardly addressed again. They just fix it and they go about their day. But at the end of the season, this one actually matters. But you've already established that the other one didn't. So why does this one matter more? The logic just isn't there. It just feels like a giant bridge to Spider-Man and Doctor Strange just for the sake of it. The action is bad. The comedy is never funny. I never laughed during this. And yes, there's a big budget look to it, but it's still visually very ugly. If I liked one element of it, Miss Minutes is really good, and I wish they utilized her a bit more. The performances are fine for what was required of the actors, but that's as positive as I can get. I think this show is just a giant mess. I think it doesn't have a good story. The character work is awful. Just everything about this show completely fell flat for me. So I'm going to go ahead and give Loki a 1 out of 10. But have you seen Loki? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you have, let me know why you think I'm a complete fool who doesn't understand good cinema and why I'm an idiot and why my opinion's wrong. Please make sure you let me know that in the comments down below. Make sure you dislike, make sure you unsubscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.